The pill bottle in my scrub pocket rattled every time I climbed the stairs, and I'd started timing my footsteps to keep it quiet, which is a strange thing to admit about a man's handwriting on a label, but that's what it had come to by the middle of June. His name was Owen. I found that out on the 3rd week, which tells you something about how long I'd been picking up my thyroid prescription without once looking above the counter. Nurses learn to keep their eyes down at pharmacy windows. You're tired, you want your bag, you want to go home and sleep before the next shift eats you alive. I'd been doing that for 2 years at Whitfield Memorial, sliding my insurance card across, taking the white paper sack, walking away. The pharmacist could have had 3 heads for all I noticed. Then one Tuesday he said, "You're a peony person, I think," out of absolutely nowhere, stapling my receipt. I actually looked up. "Excuse me?" The tote bag. He nodded at the canvas thing hanging off my shoulder, faded pink flowers printed all over it, a gift from my sister 3 birthdays ago. Peonies. Big, a little messy. They don't apologize for taking up space. Suits you. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said something dumb like it was on sale and left. But I thought about it the whole drive home, which annoyed me because I did not have room in my life that summer for a man who noticed flowers on a bag. Here's the thing about working nights on a med-surg floor. You stop being able to tell the difference between a long day and a short life. My father had passed the November before. My engagement had ended in January. Not dramatically, just a quiet running out of reasons to keep trying. And I'd moved into a studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and told myself that was temporary. The way you tell yourself a lot of things are temporary right before they become permanent. I did not want to notice a pharmacist noticing me. I had exactly enough energy to survive my shifts and drive home safely, and none left over for anything that might ask something of me. So I told myself the peony comment was a fluke, a friendly thing pharmacists say to keep the line moving, and I went back to not looking up. Except I started looking up. It became a rhythm without my permission. 6:40 in the morning, shift over. I'd come down through the lobby smelling like antiseptic and burnt coffee, and there'd be Owen at window 2, sleeves rolled, always a little bit rumpled himself because his shift started at 5. Some mornings it was just the transaction. Insurance, copay, have a good day. But some mornings he'd have something ready. A joke about the fluorescent lighting turning us all the same shade of grey. A comment on whichever co-worker's laugh he could hear echoing down the hall. Once, when I came in with my eyes red and my voice not quite steady because we'd lost a patient I'd grown attached to, he didn't say anything at all. He just handed me my bag, and taped to the side of it was a single daisy from the vase on his counter, the one his assistant kept refilling for the front desk. "You look like you needed evidence that something out there was still simple," he said. I kept that daisy pressed inside a paperback for 4 months. I'm not proud of how much that tells you, but there it is. I want to be honest about the part where I almost didn't let this become anything. There was an evening. Early August, thunderstorm rolling in, the kind that makes the whole hospital feel like a boat. When he asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, actual words, actual question, no metaphor to hide behind. And I panicked. Told him I was really slammed right now, which was true the way most avoidance is true, technically accurate and completely beside the point. He nodded like he understood, didn't push, said the offer doesn't expire, and went back to counting pills like it hadn't cost him anything to ask. It had cost him something. I found that out later from Renata, one of the techs, who told me over a break room lunch that Owen didn't usually do that, didn't strike up rapport with customers, kept things professional and brief, had been that way since his wife left 2 years earlier and took the dog and, according to Renata, most of his willingness to be surprised by people. "You're the first one he's asked about," she said, watching my face very closely. "Just so you know what you're sitting on." I sat on it for another 6 weeks. Isn't that its own kind of answer? I think about that sometimes. How the bravest thing a person does isn't always the leap. Sometimes it's just staying in the room a little longer than instinct tells you to. I kept coming to the window. I kept letting the conversations get a little longer, a little warmer, a little more dangerous. I told myself I was just being friendly. Everyone around me could see I was lying, including, I suspect, Owen, who never once mentioned dinner again, but who started leaving small things. A hard candy from the jar, a comment about my week, a "you looked steadier today." Like a man laying stones across a river he wasn't sure I'd ever cross, but building the path anyway, just in case. The thing that finally moved me wasn't romantic at all. It was ordinary, almost embarrassingly small. My mother called to tell me she was having her hip replaced, and I sat in my car in the hospital garage and cried for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside, because suddenly all of it was too much at once. My father gone, my mother frightened, my own hands smelling like other people's illnesses 10 hours a day, nobody's arm around me at the end of any of it. I went in anyway. Worked my shift. Came down at 6:40 like always, wrecked, and there was Owen, and I don't know what he saw on my face, but he came out from behind the counter, which pharmacists basically never do. There are rules about that. And he just stood there in the hallway with me for a second, not touching me, just present, and said, "You don't have to hold all of it by yourself. Not today, anyway." I don't know if that sentence would sound like much written down anywhere else. It sounded like a door opening. We had that dinner 2 weeks later, finally, at a diner near the interstate, because neither of us wanted anything that required more effort than we had. I told him about my father. He told me about his marriage, the parts that were fair to tell. Neither of us solved anything that night, but we stopped pretending we weren't circling something, and that felt like its own kind of relief, the way it does when you finally admit you're tired instead of powering through. It's been almost a year now. He still works window 2. I still pick up my prescriptions there, though we both know I could transfer them anywhere and haven't. Last week he had tulips waiting, yellow ones, my actual favorite, which I never once told him. He'd asked Renata, apparently, weeks earlier, and been patient enough to wait for the right morning to use what he knew. I think about how close I came to never finding that out. How easily I could have kept my eyes down at that counter forever, mistaking exhaustion for certainty about what I did and didn't have room for. I still don't know if I'd tell someone else in my position to take the leap sooner than I did, or if the slow way. The 6 weeks of pretending, the small stones laid one at a time, was actually the only way I could have crossed it without losing my footing entirely. Maybe that's the part I'm still turning over. Whether love has to announce itself all at once, or whether it's allowed to just keep quietly showing up at the same window, morning after morning, until you finally let yourself notice it was never going anywhere at all.